Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we have Ondrej Polesny. Ondrej, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, Jason. I'm very well today.
Good. I'm super happy to hear it. I'm thrilled to have you back on the show, and we are talking today about something that I think is really interesting. But before we dive into what we're going to talk about, let's talk a little bit about you. For folks who aren't familiar with your work, can you give us a bit of a background on yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm a developer evangelist for Kontent by Kentico, which is a headless CMS vendor, or now we call that Content as a Service.
Hmm.
I've been doing that for the past 4 years, so I'm quite familiar with all the APIs and with the things that developers and editors want. I used to be consultant before then, so I kind of speak developer and I also speak business users. So I sometimes find myself to be a bridge between these two groups, which puts me in a nice position. And my daily job is pretty much discussing the solution with developers, helping them, and making sure that they have everything they need.
Love it. And I think that one of the things that's really interesting, and I've had some conversations about this recently, is it feels like there's been a huge rise over the last few years in this idea of developer experience being a top line business need. And I'm kind of curious, why do you think that's taken such a front seat in so many companies' minds?
Well, the thing is that without developers, there are no websites. And I think that the larger the website is, the better the experience needs to be. Because I see it from front row seat. Yeah, I'm also partly responsible for our corporate side. And despite having all the tools at hand, sometimes it's really frustrating to find the thing that you're looking for. So providing a great developer experience is actually the deciding factor if someone is going to like your solution or not, because
Mm.
developers can be made to use your solution, right? In enterprises, the decisions can be made by other people, but developer experience actually, if it's good, it means that the developer will like their job, they will stay happy in the position, and the quality of their work will be much better, and they will also recommend you further. Yeah, so I think that
Yeah.
it became really an important factor of any as a solution service.
It's interesting that you say that, and I feel like um, it's been interesting to watch because I come from a very corporate background. Like I was at IBM, and while I was there, you would kind of see that decisions got made in a way that was I maybe traditionally corporate, like an SVP or somebody would kind of talk about what solutions they wanted, and then you would just kind of get told like, well, this is the way that we solve these problems now.
Mm.
But even while I was at IBM, we started to see that shift. We would see individual teams saying it is way too hard for us to do this job with this tool. We want to use this tool instead. And that push of developers saying like, I want to use the tools that I want, we saw that it was a big source of turnover. People would leave and say, I don't want to work on this legacy stack anymore. I don't want to be here dealing with all of this cruft that I know could be easier if we were using the right tools for this job instead. And it's fascinating to me to see that shift has been taking place where the power of decision making has sort of shifted to individual contributors, where if they go into their org and they say, the way that we want to work, the way that we want to be productive is with this tool, that carries so much more weight now. And it's really become a deciding factor. Like I know that people will choose their job based on whether or not they get to work with tools they like. And given how much of an employee's market it is, companies are now heavily incentivized to be providing the right tools. And that means that like companies are going to switch to the tool that developers want to use. And that means that for us as businesses that are trying to get companies to purchase our services, we have to provide the experience that developers want, or they're going to basically strong arm all of their bosses into not using us anymore. Like our relevance directly depends on being useful and pleasant for developers to work with. I'm it's so cool to see that happen in the market. And it feels like it kind of aligns incentives too, because there's another part of this, right? You work for a headless CMS. So there's another user for your product. So can you talk a little bit about content editor experience?
Right. Yeah, well, following up on what you said, Jason, I think that it's a great thing that developers now get more say in what tools are going to be used. But on the other hand, I think that developers are not that demanding. Yeah, they don't want the code to write itself. Yeah, they are not unrealistic in their expectations, and I think that's really a great thing. Because it's to provide a great developer experience, it's really not that hard. Yeah, you just give the developers the good API, you give them the good documentation, and they are happy. They are not the team that's going to be complaining about every single thing. Yeah, they just want a happy path, and if you can provide it to them, then they're gonna be happy. And I think shameless plug from your side here. I think that Netlify is doing a great job in this sense. Yeah,
Checks in the mail
from my personal experience. Yeah, but yeah, you mentioned content editors. Content editors have a hard time working with headless CMS because they were used 15 years, 20 years. They used to work with WYSIWYG editors. Yeah, we taught them how to use WYSIWYG editors. We told them some of them even learned basics of HTML. Yeah, because they just didn't have any other way how to achieve certain things, and they were used to building for web.
Right.
Yeah. So now when you give them headless CMS and you tell them, hey, it's decoupled, you can write content for websites, for mobile apps, for even printed brochures or some other channels. They are confused. They don't know what to think about that, and they are so confused about the tools that they are missing that they start not to like it. Yeah, they go into a headless CMS and they see everything is structured, but they don't see the benefits. Yeah, they don't see that they can change things only in a single place, to have the single source of truth for all the channels. They don't see it's gonna save their time. They only see that they are limited and what they need to do. Yeah. And of course, we now talk a lot about multi-channel, about having single piece of content everywhere. But the truth is, 80% of companies still use website as their main channel, and the content editors are building for that channel. So now, when we took their good experience from WYSIWYG editors, and we don't have anything to kind of fill that gap, we tell them about benefits that they don't see, but they still have an awful experience when they cannot do things that they were used to. Yeah, and it's the same with developers. Like, we like to learn stuff, but if it's too hard, then we tend to not like it at all. Yeah, and it's the same with editors, and it's a really huge step in their. It's a huge mind shift from their point of view.
You bring up something that I've always kind of found interesting, right? And if this is going to take a dangerous turn toward the socio-political, and I swear I'm going to bring it back safely, but when you look at how power dynamics work in groups, you typically have a group that has outsized influence, and then the other groups that suffer under that outsized influence. And what I noticed is that in the previous iteration with big companies, what you would see is that the leadership teams tended to be made of business people, of sales, of marketing, folks who thought about things on that scale. And as a result, the tools they would choose were the tools that suited their needs. So you would get something like Adobe Experience Manager, or you would get in smaller companies WordPress, right? And it was because they provided these very content editor friendly solutions. For someone who worked in marketing, it was really great because they could go in and they could edit it exactly and see a preview and get it live right away. But the developers who didn't have as much influence in the org just sort of got left holding the bag of like, well, that's not really what this tool is for, but we like it, so you have to deal with it. And the wheel turns. Developers are now a lot of leadership across companies. We're seeing more and more startups, and more mid-sized companies are now developer run. We've got huge companies like Twilio where, their whole thing is about developers, right? So the choices that they're going to make are about what makes developers happy. But we want to make sure we don't repeat this mistake of saying, well, developers, you get exactly what you want, and everybody else has to deal with it. And we did kind of make this mistake. If you look at some of the evolution story here, we switched to Git-based workflows, and suddenly we're asking marketers to create GitHub accounts and open pull requests, and like they'll write Markdown. It's not like it's prohibitive to somebody. It's just not how they want to work. It's the same as it's not prohibitive for me to work with WordPress's templating language. It's just not what I want to do. And what I find interesting is that with these focuses on developer experience and content editor experience coming from, the like Netlify is really focused on the developer experience, and we've got these API driven headless CMSs which are really focused on the developer experience. Kontent is providing that sort of thing, which is what we'll look at here in a bit when we get hands-on. But you're also thinking about that content editor experience. What does it feel like to edit this website? How do I make these changes? How do I get in? How do I get a preview? The stuff that was present in the content editor focused tools that is sometimes absent when we only focus on the developer experience. And the other thing that's interesting about this, we also lose a third trade-off, which is a detriment to the user experience. Because sometimes when we go all in on the monolithic CMSs, developers are forced to make trade-offs because they don't know the tool very well, they're not super comfortable with it, and they just kind of like let things happen, and that leads to bloated pages, slow loads, things like that. And the content editors are doing things in a WYSIWYG, and they don't sometimes realize that they just added a 15 megabyte image to this page. And now the page takes 12 seconds to load, and then, wait, why? We'd have no idea. Well, it turns out you didn't optimize that image, but how would you know that? You just drag and dropped it in and it just showed up, right? It worked. And so these are the sorts of things that I think are interesting, because we're starting to address that and make these experiences automatically good for developers, content editors, and users. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you're thinking about that. Like, how do you balance these trade-offs of developer needs, content editor needs, user needs? What are you keeping in mind when you make these choices?
This is really hard, Jason. Like it's really hard to find that line. Yeah. When you look at developers who start thinking about content model, for example, yeah, all they see is database, because that's what we were taught. Yeah, that's what we were doing in the past. We were optimizing MS SQL databases. We were learning about NoSQL databases and everything. And then when you transfer that knowledge into a content model, it's going to fail really quickly. Yeah. Some agencies and some developers, this will be probably the CTOs, have learned the hard way that this is not the way how it's supposed to be done. But I think that there's still a lot of confusion and a lot of searching into finding the right balance between the three groups that you mentioned. I don't think that the traditional, the legacy CMSs make a really bad experience in that sense, because they do a lot of things automatically for you. Yeah. And I think that there are still very good use cases. Like I know a lot of people around me who are not that technical, and they successfully run WordPress sites. Yeah, it's perfectly fine to use that from my point of view. But when you get to a certain point, and I also have a friend, and she has a food delivery business, and I think she is at that point right now, when a single information is used on multiple places. Then it really makes sense to start thinking about the content model as a whole, and start thinking about the content editing experience, because otherwise you can easily find a content editor working on a Friday afternoon, night, trying to just change a very simple thing on 10 places and forgetting 3 others. Yeah. So yeah, I think that there are use cases for everything, and this, searching for the fine line is also going to be different with every project, because it depends on who's on the project, what's the budget of the project, and on a lot of other aspects.
So what would you say are the, I know that the requirements are always going to dictate things, right? And that's our job as developers. As we reach deeper into our maturity as developers, we have to get really good at measuring trade-offs, because there's no perfect solution. There's nothing that's going to solve all of our problems. So we're always weighing pros and cons here. But there are some things that are pretty hard to make optional. So what would you consider are like the non-negotiable pieces of a content editor experience that we need to be keeping in mind when we choose a headless CMS or a CMS solution or any of these approaches as developers?
That's a good question, but maybe for the wrong person, because I'm also a developer.
Well, that's actually kind of why I'm asking is, you know, you are a developer. I'm making choices for myself as like, I want the CMS that's easiest for me, a developer, to work with. But as someone who's working, you know, at a CMS, I imagine you're also hearing from content editors, we need this feature, or we won't switch to your platform.
Yeah.
So what are the things that you're hearing? Like, I'm a developer, I'm weighing these tools, and I find one that's perfect for me. As I'm assessing whether or not I'm making the wrong trade-offs for the rest of my team, for my content editors, for my well, let's stick to content editors. What are the things that I can't trade off for my content editors for a better developer experience?
It depends team from team. We are focused on enterprise, and we are providing enterprise level content editing features. So I would say things like a very granular role setting, collections for, you know, when you have a country site and a global site, very nice translation workflows. So it makes easier for the editor to, you know, translate things, to make it easy to reuse content. Yeah, because if you can't easily reuse content, then what's the point of having even a headless CMS at all? It's multiple workflows, because for every part of your content model, and we're seeing a lot of projects that are not just about websites. Yeah, a lot of people think headless CMS is only for websites, but we see a lot of large clients that are solving totally different needs than websites. Yeah. And the granular workflows and having specific workflow for a specific piece of content is really important. Yeah, and then one interesting, very basic requirement that I hear a lot is, how do I use the system without touching a mouse? Yeah, they just want to be quick. They want to use keyboard as much as possible. And some solutions on the market, they just don't have that nice keyboard only experience.
Sure.
So that would be, yeah. But again, it depends on the editor team, and I think that the editor teams, they usually put the highest priority on things that were not working for them well in the previous system. So you have to be kind of careful watching for these.
Yeah, no, that's really fair. And some of the things that I think of, just in my own experience of trying to move teams through different things, I've done everything from putting people into GitHub directly and saying just edit Markdown because that's what we have time to implement right now, to you know, we're gonna implement headless WordPress because I know you like the WordPress experience, so you continue to use WordPress the way you've always have, and I will make sure that the headless side will make the developer experience good that way. Some of the things that I've noticed repeatedly come up are being able to preview changes, so that there's like a review process there, and being able to quickly see what's going on inside of the CMS. So I think if you open it and you're presented with a dashboard that's like, here's a pile of unstructured content, like we just pulled everything into one big pile and you have to sort it down to the different content types that are available and stuff. So clear navigation toward where they're trying to edit and a good review workflow seem to be the things that are hard to get right in a headless world, because it's not fully integrated the way that something like WordPress as a monolith is. I think that those are the things that I've noticed, and I know that's. And now, is that something that you have? Would you say you have kind of figured out a solution to that workflow with content?
Yeah, like what you mentioned is really the basics. Yeah, I kind of see them as a total industry standard. Yeah, and those you mentioned the previews; those are absolutely essential. Because editors, they don't just schedule something or publish something and go home. Yeah, they always need to look at how it looks like if they haven't made some horrible mistake or anything. So the quick previews are an absolute must. Then there are things like content collaboration. Yeah, good workflows that you can you don't have to ping your colleagues on Teams, but you just add them a task and you're sure that they know about it. Simultaneous editing, when multiple people arrive at a single item. How do you resolve the conflicts? So these are but those are really the basics. Yeah. And I think that the Jamstack, actually, one of the things that it brought, apart from a lot of developers that were really enthusiastic about it, was the frowning upon from editors, because now they were facing preview builds taking 10, 15, 20 minutes on average sites. Yeah. So I think that that's where the preview problem originated. And of course, they are just looking for the same things they had with the traditional systems. So it's our job to bring them as close as possible if the primary channel that we're delivering content to is website.
Absolutely. And so today, what we will be talking about is the context of websites. But I agree. What's really exciting about using a headless CMS is that you're not jumping between systems. Well, this is our app CMS. This is our website CMS. This is our internal CMS. We now have one system that can feed content to everywhere, because multiple properties can consume that API, where it's kind of hard for a monolith to generate 3 separate properties. At least in kind of like a standard out of the box workflow. And I think that's really exciting. So I think maybe it makes more sense to just start actually looking at this, because I feel like there's a ton of abstract stuff that we could talk about here. And there are a lot of ways we could go with this sort of discussion. But ultimately, I think maybe the most impactful thing we can do is show people how it works. So I'm going to go ahead and switch us over into pair programming view, and you can walk us through how we can get started with a really good content editor experience. Here we go.
Oh, cool. Sounds good.
All right. Now, so before we get started, let me do a quick shout out. We have Amanda from White Coat Captioning here with us today. Thank you so much for being here. And that is made possible through the support of our sponsors. We've got Netlify. NX, the monorepo tool, is a new sponsor as of last week, so welcome and thank you. And then Backlight Dev, which is for building design systems, is a great tool. There are episodes on both NX and Backlight in the Learn with Jason backlog, so go check those out if you want to learn more. And we are talking today to, if I can get to your Twitter profile, Ondrej. Ondrej. Yes. So you can head over there, make sure you give him a follow on Twitter. And that's all the information I have. What else? Like, where do I even start? What's my first step if I want to get into Content by Kentico? I'm going to start by...
Right. So the first thing you can do is go to content.ai. You see the Google is optimized for us, so it's fine. And you go into For Developers, where you'll find a link to sign up. Yeah, this is
a good callback, I think, to what we were talking about. Like, these are experiences. Also, these buttons are fun. These are experiences that are really important for, like, we have to address both. And what's interesting is if you look around, not every CMS is doing this. A lot of CMSs are optimizing only for developers or only for marketers. And so that's kind of what I was talking about with there are some table stakes things that need to be true for both groups to have a wonderful experience. And so I'm excited to see that we're already starting out by saying, look, we know there's 2 groups that are going to use this tool. Which group are you primarily identifying with? All right, so I'm a developer. Going in here and here.
Yeah, you can get to a developer plan page. You can go to a sign up. But today, what I actually want to start with is I'm gonna invite you into an already existing project. Yeah, because
gotcha. Okay.
The basics of creating models and content, it's not that interesting for developers. So I'm gonna invite you to a project that already exists. Just tell me the email that I can use.
Yeah, let's use jason@langsdorf.com. I'll like that.
Okay, I'm gonna make you a project manager.
All right. Yet another career pivot for me.
Okay, you should receive an email quickly.
Okay, I'm watching my email on the other monitor.
You can also fork a repo that I created just for this occasion. People in the chat can do that as well if they want. The keys are all in there. I'm gonna send you a link to the chat. It's a Next.js site. It's based on a website that I'm sure that you know. It's accessible at jason.af. Very cool site. It has a lot of nice sound effects.
So we're going to be rebuilding, or we're going to be working with jason.af. Okay, great.
Yeah, very,
All
very cool
right.
site. I really like that. Probably some of the effects will not work because I just wanted to port as much as I could to Next.js. But yeah, we're going to be looking at Next.js site. We're going to be looking at GraphQL today. And hopefully it's going to work.
Okay. All right.
I see it's not that many packages. So
oops. All right. So I'm going to open this up and then I'm going to go back to my email here. So there's the code. And here is my invitation to access the project. I'm going to copy this link, bring it back over here. And okay, let me do this on another window so that I don't show everybody my password. Okay. Setting my password. And okay, now I'm going to sign in. Just 1 second to... Is this the one that was just created? Yes. All right.
the project is called JSON. So just make sure you're in the right one.
Okay, so I just got logged in, got my password set up and everything. I have to register to join the project. Cool, I can do that. I am a developer. Sure.
Perfect. Now we can just dismiss this.
Okay.
And we should be there.
Okay, so now I'm in the project.
Right. Now, what you can do is you can go to content model so that we can take a look at the content types that are in the project. Okay. So they are based on the JSON AF site. I'm not going to go probably through all of them. Just so you know, these content types are pretty much one-to-one mapped to components on the website. Yeah, okay. So this is a place where marketers would go in, they would create their landing pages based on components that you prepared for them, and without your approval or any other adjustment in the future. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So these are, let's take a look at one, for example, the hero, section hero, so that we know what we're talking about. You see here that there is a first line, there's a second line, and there's taglines that directly correspond to the hero banner on the JSON.af.
First line, second line, taglines, and the reason we need multiple.
Exactly that, yeah, because of the button that switches them. So that functionality will be preserved, and you see that in when you go back to the content type, the taglines is actually linked items, and if you open the little cog icon, the settings of that element, you see that the only allowed type is tagline.
Got it.
But there don't have to be any. The element is not required. So we can kind of tweak around these elements. You can always adjust them so that editors know exactly what you want from them, and it also streamlines the UI for them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so we've got that set up, and then if I go back, let's go to the content model again. Then down here, I saw there was a tagline, so I can open this up, and this is some text. Great. And so these are the content model. I'm assuming if I want to look at the values, I go to content and assets.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And also, let me make this bigger so that I'm on a smaller screen. So this more, like if there was more vertical real estate, I assume all of these would be visible, right?
Yeah. They should be available, yeah.
Yeah, it's just I have my my screen is like way zoomed in for visibility and stuff. So this
that's nice. That's all right.
I actually like
it should work well.
This is thoughtful about vertical spacing and not like smashed together. Because I've definitely built a lot of websites and not thought about somebody with like a short window and then all the pieces are just on top of each other because some are bottom aligned, some are top aligned, and I never thought about it being too short. So, you know, props to your design team for thinking through that.
Yeah, like in the past, we had to solve the differences between browsers, and now that browsers finally learned how to behave, we have to solve all the different devices and screen sizes, right? So
infinite viewports, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
so here,
yeah, in the content repository, you see all the content items that are in your project currently. Yeah.
Okay.
It's as you can see, if you're an editor and look at this, it's not easy for you to understand what's going on there. There are some ideas, there are some taglines, there are some bios, whatever that means. The important thing is that there is the first item in the list, the website, is the container for our website. Yeah. If you open that, there is a field called content, where you can start composing your site. Yeah, it's composed of components. This is the hero image. There's the bio section. There's if you go down, there's another section called teaching. Yeah, and you see all the content is kind of here, but so that the content editor can come in, they can compose their page as they see fit, yeah, from the components that we prepared for them. Yeah. Yeah, this still looks nice. The important thing is that you still get all the publishing workflows here. Yeah. So you see that right now the page is published. You cannot change anything here. What you can do is you can create a new version, or you can unpublish the page. So it directly tells the editor that their actions are going to have consequences. Yeah, to see what they actually want to do. But first thing that I totally forgot I wanted to do is, if you can go to project settings.
Okay.
And go into environments. It's the second item in the menu from the top.
This one.
Yes. Then here you can see that we're on production environment, right? Yeah. And this let's imagine this as a working site. Yeah, we don't want to change, like if we want to play with the website, with the implementation, and we want to change the content, we want to change the content model a bit, it's not a good idea to do it on production. Yeah,
sure.
So what we can do right now is we can clone the production environment into something that you want, like a development or whatever name you can think of.
Okay.
Right. And what this is going to do is going to do a complete clone of the project. Yeah. So you as a developer can then play with the content. You can adjust it to fit your needs, to test something without actually compromising or editing something on production, which could probably have disastrous effects.
Okay. So I'm in. Oh, it's down here. Cloning.
Yeah, it's creating the environment. That should take only a second because we don't have that much content in there. But in the meantime, maybe we can take a look at the implementation.
Sure. Let me get this, or actually we already opened it. So it's over here.
Yeah.
And we have, we've got some components. We've got some pages. Here's our index page. And this looks like where we want to be. So let me look at this index page, and we're pulling in our menu footer, all these pieces. We've got Apollo client. All right, so we got some GraphQL coming our way today. And this looks like Next.js. Is that right?
Exactly. It's an Next.js starter. Here in get static props, you can use GraphQL, you can use REST API, whatever you want. Okay. I'm more of a REST API kind of guy because I like strong types, but I figured you like GraphQL a bit more, so I wanted to do this with GraphQL.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, so there is the large GraphQL query that actually contains all of the components that we know that can occur there. Yeah, that doesn't mean that they will be there, but it means that if an editor adds them there, we will have their data. And then if you go slightly lower, there is a quite simple implementation of the linked items resolver. So this only maps the data to a specific component. Yeah, so we have 4 sections: hero, bio, teaching, and newsletter, and every one of them have their corresponding content items in the headless CMS. So this is the code that actually maps them together.
And that is coming through on here. We're getting our linked items here, right?
Yes, but we can look at that through the GraphQL Explorer. I think that nicely shows the structure of of the content.
Is that in here?
It's no, it's not deployed here, but in our docs, there is a link to a tool that you can use. So if you go to docs.content.ai,
all right,
and go to API reference.
API reference.
Yes, and on the left side, there is a delivery GraphQL API. And if we go down to a section called Explore Your GraphQL Schema, exactly that, there's a link for the tool that's available online. And what you need to do is just add there the URL graphql.content.ai/the project ID. You can get that from the project.
Is this? Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah, you need to remove the GraphQL from the URL. Just have the GraphQL, yeah.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah. And you need to go back to the project.
I think that that link is broken, heads up. But okay, so I'm going back to the project.
And then you can either go to settings or you can just grab the project ID from the URL. Yeah, it's the first GUID. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay. And I'm going to need the rest of the GraphQL API endpoint, which is...
It's a graphql.content.ai. If you don't want to look for it, it's in the docs as well, but this is probably faster.
GraphQL.content.ai.
Yes.
Like that?
Yeah, and / the project ID. Yeah, that should work.
Okay. Alrighty. And so then in here, I get my query, and I'm actually going to use the Explorer because this is a little bit easier. Let's get just the BIOS for now, because that will be easier than trying to... We got linked items, and we'll go items. Oh, wait. How is this? Is this right?
I have a window over there. Can you move the window a bit to the right?
Oh, yeah. Let me shrink this up.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so if I go into bio...
So if you want all the bios, like this is for getting on the one, yeah, if you know the code name. But if you want all the bios, there's a bio_all right beneath this one.
Bio all, items, text, HTML, and we'll start
because it's a rich text editor, yeah. So we can have any kinds of images and all the other things. So yeah, this would be all the bios that are in the system. Like you have multiple versions of them, like small, medium, large. So all of them are displayed now. And the type is actually a taxonomy item, or no, it's not a taxonomy. It's a multiple choice. Sorry. So you just need to go into items, type items, and look at the... Yeah, you were there. No, you were there.
I was here. Type items.
Yeah, type items, system, and code name or name, whichever one you prefer. And it's going to show you that this is a short. Yeah. So it's kind of it's a defined structure. But as soon as you get the habit of using these elements, there's a lot of flexibility, in all of these.
Yeah, and what I think is interesting about this is, so like if I close down the bios, but I want to go to my section bio, then I get in here a link to the bios themselves, and then I can get the HTML and the type, code name here, and then do I have to?
And in here you have only a single section bio, right? So you have to provide the code name if you want to use that one. You can use again the all.
And so what I would have here is, like, I know this one here. Oh, is each of these its own bio? But I have the section bio. Is that
the section bio should be somewhere? Oh, the section bio is actually inline component. So there are two ways how you can work with content. It's either a reusable linked item, or it's an inline component that's living only in the scope of a single item. Yeah. So here we're looking at the website page, and the section is actually an inline component here. So it's not anywhere else, because sometimes it doesn't make sense to reuse some content. Yeah, like if it's specific for a website or for a specific landing page.
Okay, cool. So then we get we get our section bio, and then each of the bios is gonna have the text as HTML, and then we'd have the type as a code name. And this brings us, it looks like this one doesn't actually have anything in it.
Yeah, because right now there are no section bios in the system. They only live as components. So you have to start actually one level up at the landing page.
I understand. And so to do that, we're looking at
that would be the WS homepage.
Website homepage.
All the way down. Yeah, there it is.
Okay. So then I get my items.
Yeah.
Get my content. And subpages
and
is going to be empty.
Yeah, there is the HTML, right? And in the HTML, you get all the components as objects, and then you need to resolve them. So the CMS doesn't know how you want to resolve it. And in cases when you're not working with websites, the structure will be a bit different. So here you can actually get the HTML, and then you get all the data of the components so you can put it together in your app.
Okay. And it looks like I'd have to limit this a little bit because my query is too complex.
Yeah, there are sometimes when the query is too broad, there is a limitation on how many items it can give you back.
Okay.
But that usually means you're trying to do something that's not helping you. But here, if you go into items, content, linked items, and you go into items, so here you see all the sections that actually can exist there. Yeah, because the content field or the content element is limited in what kind of sections the marketer can add there. The GraphQL gives you the possible data that can occur here. Yeah, so it's then up to you to define which items you want. So in this case, it would be section bio. You can click on bios.
Get just the URLs of the photos.
Yeah, that works too.
And that gives me
still no content here.
See, nothing there. Let's go back to the bios because we know those worked. Let's go items, and I'll just get the type. And that looks like it's too complex. Do I need to limit this query?
But that's weird because the content item is definitely there. So let's try to get only the
Must be within range.
No,
1 in 20. Do we need to filter somehow?
So maybe it'd be good if you used only the homepage and actually define the code name homepage in there, because there's only one with that name. Maybe it's complaining about that.
Okay. So it's just like this?
Yeah, just homepage. Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll go
and just to test, just do a system.codename at the top. Yeah, just to see if we get some results here.
Field
type must have a subselection. Oh yeah, you have extra content
turn off
in there.
Content. Okay, there we go. All right, so now I have that. I can go to content. I can go to
HTML.
Linked items.
You want to get the HTML?
HTML. Yeah, let's get HTML.
You have extra linked items there. Yeah, so this is the sections that we currently have in the page.
Nice. Okay, and so each of these is then linked to a thing. And so if we got these as like items and
you get those as components. If you go, so the linked items are the ones that are usable, but the components are the ones that are inline, right? So you can get here items.
Okay, so I was looking for the wrong things. That's what was going wrong. Okay, so let me get the type, and we'll say items system code name.
Yeah.
And now we get, so we've got the home page, we've got the bio section, and then each of these has a short, medium, and long. And now this is what you've already solved this by going through and saying, for each of these on the home page, get the components. We want the hero section, the bio section, the social links, and then you just kind of dug into each of the subsections that we needed.
Exactly, yeah. And in this case, I also added system code names and system IDs for some of the items that I'm going to show, or we're going to show later. But these are all the data that we need potentially if the components are there for the sections that we want.
Got it. Okay. All right. So then down here, we've got what starts to look like a standard page. So we set the title, we've got our menu, our main, and then this rich text component is coming from an actual component.
Yeah, that's a
So
component that's actually taken from another content project.
okay.
We're probably gonna be adding that as an npm package because it's what actually makes the parsing of the GraphQL response into components. Yeah, but right now it's just a copy paste from a different project.
Gotcha. So if we look at this, it pulls in the ID. We get some checking here, and down toward the bottom, here we go. So we've got a rich text component, pulls in all of these props, and then out here does some thinking to replace the node with the right kind of node, and then just outputs it as a div. Got it.
Yeah, so what's happening here is
the
object tags, they are actually replaced with your components. That's the only thing that's happening here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So we can work with that. So if I head back to my home page, which was here, then
Yes, yeah.
All right. So we basically do the query, and then we resolve the linked item using, I'm going to collapse this one. We resolve the linked item here, which does this switch and tells us which item to use. And that gets fed into this rich text component, which gives us the ability to actually render each of these things.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. That makes sense.
So you see here that it's data.vs.homepage.content. Yeah. So it's the homepage that we're getting from content, and .content is the element that contains the rich text that has all the components.
And going back to our query, we can see that data, WS homepage, content.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you. And
cool.
So is this ready to go if I start it up?
It should be, yeah. The end file is there, so you should be able to run it.
Okay, I'm just gonna double check. Yep, should work. So I'm just gonna Netlify dev. And this will pull in our environment variables and all the bits that we need. And look at it go. And it works.
Yeah. It's only 3 taglines, but it should work well. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, and you got the sound effects working too.
Yeah.
I just realized that I'm not piping the sound out right now, so only I can hear this, but yeah. Right? So this is kind of the fun way of yeah, just something that I get excited about is making weird noises. But so this is great. So now we kind of have this all set up. So what if I want to go and start messing with this, right? Like I'm assuming this is pulling off the production environment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So you need to go into environment file, and you need to change the project ID.
Okay. So environment, and I want to change the project ID, which is going to be in here.
So you want to switch the environment first. So it's currently in production. You want to go to development, and then go into project settings.
Into project settings.
Or take that from the URL. Doesn't matter.
And
all the way down, there's the API keys in the menu, in the middle.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Project ID.
And there's the project ID.
Okay, so I'm gonna go in here to the project ID.
Yeah.
And replace it. I have a plugin that I can't figure out how to turn off that masks these values. So you're just gonna have to trust me that these are here. So
okay. You should also change the preview key because that's different for your new environment. So that's on on the right, the primary, yeah.
Okay.
So this ensures that you also see content that's in draft, yeah. Otherwise, if you use the project ID, that's a public information, and the content can be queried from the APIs publicly, yeah. But you don't want that to happen to things that you have in draft. So that's for that use case.
Okay.
And yeah, so now when we look at the website,
so let me restart it, and this will pull the new environment variables. Okay. And so now nothing will have changed because we haven't edited any of the content, but this content is now being pulled from our development environment. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Very cool. Okay. So then I am going to go in here and just wreak havoc on this site. So if I go into my, let's go to the short bio, and we can say,
yeah, you first need to create a new version because that content is published.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So I've got this, and then I can say, okay, so we have a draft.
Right.
Okay. And is this saved? Okay, it says saved. Can we preview
so now when
it,
you
or
go
do I
back
have
to
to
the
publish?
site, no, you don't have to publish because you already have the preview key there. Actually, you need to do one change because right now you're using the public endpoint for GraphQL, so you have to change the endpoint.
Ah, okay. And
so it's the same one, but just do a prefix of preview and dash. So it's preview-graphql.content.ai.
Like that?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll save, restart.
And maybe one more thing. In the Apollo client, we also need to add the header for the preview key. Yeah, so you got 401, which is correct because you're not authorized to use that project ID.
And
so we need, if you go to index,
hackers.
Apollo client.
Yeah.
Apollo client. So then I just need to send headers, right?
Yeah, just set headers.
And is it authorization?
And set authorization header with its standard like a bearer token, and the content preview key should be there.
Is that right? Let me.
Yeah, that should work.
Content preview key. Got it. Okay, so let's save that, and I think that'll just work. It does. And hey, we are cooking with gas here. We got drafts. So this is really exciting because what this means is that if we set this up to be like a dynamically rendered site, so if we're pulling this from the API at load time, which for a preview site makes sense, you know, we're not trying to optimize, we're trying to get the latest data, then we can set up a development branch that uses the preview API. And now our content editors have a place to go where they can immediately see changes and share them around for feedback and all those things that we want.
Right. But that's just the setting up the site. Yeah. So now we get to interesting stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I wanted to show you today is two things. One thing is a SmartLink SDK that goes like halfway of a great user editing experience. And the next thing is Web Spotlight. These two actually, sorry?
Oh, sorry. I think we might have picked up a little bit of a delay, so I'm talking over you now. I apologize.
Okay, no problem. So these two actually complement themselves. So we have to start with the SmartLink SDK, and then I'll show you how to look at the Web Spotlight, right? So the first thing we want to look at is SmartLink SDK. It's best if you just Google Kontent SmartLink SDK. It's going to take you to a GitHub repo that has a very good README developer-wise. Yes,
this
that's the one.
Okay.
And basically, the what you need is install a package. That's the first thing that will be there. npmi Kentico Kontent SmartLink. And what this does is it actually adds one minified JavaScript file to your website that will do a little bit of an overlay of your website to provide editors with the direct links back to the CMS. Yeah, because right now, if you don't know the site, if I didn't give you the intro and you would see only the product, you would probably have to look around for quite some time to figure out how things are composed together and how to change stuff. Yeah, so this is designed to help editors not spend that time and be able to directly change content as they see it. Yeah,
got it.
So do we have it there?
Well, I installed it.
Right.
How do I use it?
Now, if you go back to the docs and search for Next.js, there is a specific example for Next.js. Yeah, there it is. So what you want to do is on the app TSX, you want to import, you want to import that.
And then we're going to use effect.
Yeah.
All right.
You want to add this
here.
Right before, yeah.
So I need to import use effect from React. All right. And then down here, just need to wrap the whole thing in page section.
No, I don't think that you need to do this. This is fine. You already have that component there, so this is, you don't need to do this right now. But if you go back to the code, you have to provide a project ID. So this is so that the Smart Link SDK knows where to point your users.
Right,
yeah, I hope that the process env is going to be available in this context. But we'll see.
Yeah, it might not be, huh?
Yeah, because if you don't have it available here, it's fine. You can just remove the default data attributes. We can define it in the document. Yeah, that's all right. So just remove the whole section.
Remove this whole section.
Yeah, just the default. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and the important thing is that it's initialized now. And when you switch to document JSX, so that's the layout over the whole website. You want to do this on body probably, because that's the wrapper around everything. And you need to provide the project ID and the default language so that we know where to point the editors. Yeah. So the attributes are also on the GitHub page, but I'll just tell them to you so you don't have to switch. It's data-content-project-ID.
Okay, now this one's also not going to have access to the process.env. So should I hard code it, or do we want to add the next public?
I think this one does have access to process.env. Yeah.
I actually don't know how this one works, so I will take your word for it and let's make that happen. And then the other one was
for me, so
data content.
Data content language code name.
Language code, no spaces?
Code name, yeah, no spaces.
Like that?
So this is just in case that you have a multilingual site, so that when the editor is on the English side, they are editing English content and vice versa. The code name is default, actually not en in our case.
Okay.
And this actually initializes the SDK for the whole website and tells it which project we're using in which language, right? And what you need to do now is on all places where you want to, where you expect editors to change content, you need to decorate the elements with these attributes so that the SDK knows what kind of items we are looking at, right? So if you go, we're probably not going to do it on index because index is only like the master page. Gotcha. But we can take a look at the hero, for example, the hero component.
Got it.
Yeah. So when you look at that, there is a section class name, so it's best to do it on the top level and add an attribute there that's called data content component ID, because we're working with components here, right? So component ID. And that would be, in this case, it would be, because here we see the data are coming as data variable. Mm-hmm. And at the top where you see the first line, second line, tag lines, those are the elements, right, of the content item. So we're going to use the same, but we're going to use a system to get the ID. Yeah. So the system is it's like a special element that contains all the system fields. So like it's best to just write data.data. Underscore like system that. Underscore. Yeah. And here we need ID. So .id.
Okay.
Right. And the next thing you need to do is, so this actually sets the ID of the component, right? And on the places where you're actually rendering content, there's another parameter that you need to add that's data content element code name that directly corresponds to which element is being rendered here. Now, because we're using GraphQL, it gets easier here because the name of the variable corresponds to the element code name. So we can just write first line. It can be just a string literal.
Gotcha. Okay. So let me copy paste this to here.
Yeah.
Second line. And here, tag lines. Is that
Now, still one thing we need to do. This is perfect, yeah. And one more thing
Okay.
we need to do is on the index page, we need to tell the SDK that we're using the homepage content item. So if you go down to the main element, yeah, there is the class name home. So just add their data content item ID. And that's again going to be data dot, I think, yeah, vs homepage dot
system ID?
System ID, exactly.
Okay.
And one more thing here, it's also going to be data content element code name, because we're rendering components from the content element, right? So just do it as another attribute on the main, yeah.
Data content component code name.
Component code name. It's element code name, sorry.
Element code name. And is this element one WS homepage?
This is just content. This is the element code name. Yeah, the VS homepage is the code name of the whole content item, but here we're only identifying the specific
We want
element.
this.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, when you save this and when you go back to the site, we already have the site set up as preview, right? So we should see the fresh content.
Okay, so we're reloading.
Right. Now,
reading ID, we're missing an ID.
On the main.
Let's check.
Yeah, that's possible. We might need to add some stuff to the GraphQL.
WS homepage. We don't have. Yeah, we don't have the system.
Right. So yeah, just add it.
Is it supposed to be under the content or under the homepage?
No, it's under homepage. So the content is already an element. So you need to do it on the same level. Yeah. Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, that should work.
Okay. And we reload the page, and Perfect. There it is. And if I open up my elements here, we can see the project ID. And then if I dig Perfect. In a little bit on the main class, we get our content item ID and our content element code name. Okay, so things are doing what we expected. We've got valid IDs in there.
Perfect. Now, nothing's happening because you're not in the preview mode. So the last thing you need to do is just add a query string there that's called preview underscore mode. That should enable the preview mode.
Any like equals true or just like this?
No, that's fine. Just having it there should be enough.
Okay.
Okay, anything happened?
I don't see anything happening.
Okay, so we must have done something wrong.
Extra attributes from the server.
No, this is something different.
That's from Next.js.
That shouldn't be it.
Site web manifest, we don't care about that.
Oh, those are still the fonts. All right, so maybe we have something wrong in the setup. That happens.
Did we get? So let's see if we got the. Are we looking for like a specific thing to come in from content or anything?
Yeah, it might be worth checking the app.tsx, the code file, to see if we have the query parameter right. This is usually the issue. Yeah, it's not an underscore, it's dash.
Got it.
Mode.
Hey!
Yeah, there you go.
Nice.
Right, so this already solves first problem, like looking for items. So when you click on that, it should take you to the right environment, to the right content item. And of course, the item is going to be published. So if you need to change it, you will need to, again, create a new version, but you have it there.
Nice. Okay. So, and then if I want to go into like this one specifically, I click taglines.
It's going to take you to the same content item right now because it's still published. But if you create a new version, it should also scroll down to the taglines.
Okay, let me create a new version.
Yep.
And now we're at taglines.
Yep.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah. So this already improves the editor experience a bit. So far, what we've looked at, this is all available in the free plan, and the SmartLink SDK is open source. So anyone is able to play with this for free.
Okay, and so now we've got this. I just see it saved here, so I'm going to go back out. I'm going to refresh the page. Okay. Oh, I have to take off the preview mode, don't I?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll take off the preview mode. There we go. Off to the races.
Nice.
Like nothing. I mean, this is great. I love the approachability of this and how much you know, there's this little bit of setup that we've done by tagging things appropriately with where they come from in the content management system is giving us that ability to just say, hey, content team, like here's a thing you can do. And I could even build something that was like, if I'm on the development branch, show a button up in the top right that just says like, click this to toggle preview mode on and off. And so then when they click that, it would take them to, you know, this preview mode here. And then anyone who wants to can just go in and very quickly edit any of these pieces. And that's just, that's really nice. It's really pleasant to be able to work like that. And, you know, I like that it just very quickly shows me, oh, look, we've got a draft version of this and we're working on a draft version of this. And, you know, each of these things is here. So it feels very like, I like how quickly we would be able to iterate as a team without anybody on the team ever needing to know how the code works. They just toggle between these two modes and make some edits and they're ready to go.
One thing to note here is that even when it's preview content, it still goes through the Fastly CDN. So it may take a few moments to appear on the website. So if you refresh it too quickly, it's not going to be there. But there's a solution for that that we can implement. Is just adding a header to the request for data that says wait for new content. Then the CDN is going to wait for the new content to appear. Yeah. So if you want to do that, header... we're going to need it for the web spotlight anyway in a second. So it's where you set up the authorization header. Yeah. Just below there, it should be x-kc-wait -for-loading -new-content. So wait for loading new content and set that to true.
Okay. So that'll just tell it to wait for Fastly to update, which it takes a few seconds. Is that right?
Depends. What I experienced is, it could be 1 second, could be 5 seconds, but it's really, really quite quick.
Cool. All right. So then the next thing is you said web preview, which I'm curious about because there's a button for this.
Yeah.
Or web spotlight, sorry. And we haven't looked at this yet, so I'm very curious what this one is.
Right. So first of all, we need to set up a preview URL. Yeah. So if you go into project settings, there is the preview URL menu item. And we're going to need this to be available somewhere online because we will need to use HTTPS.
All right, let's publish it. So I will, let me do, so I'm going to echo.env into gitignore, and then we can git add, wait, why didn't that work? .env. Is it specifically not? Oh, it's because you had this committed. So I guess it doesn't matter, right? We can just commit this, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I'm just going to do that. I will git add everything. Am I a contributor on this repo or should I fork it?
Not sure if you are. I can make you a contributor. It's fine. Just give me a second.
Let's see. I have not. You know what? I'm gonna fork it simply because I haven't set this up to use your account on Netlify, so it'll be faster if I do it this way. Right. So I'm gonna fork it. I would like to add a remote for the fork. Good. And then if I check my remotes, I can see that we've got an upstream of your repo and an origin of my repo. Good. So what I'm going to do then is git commit and we'll say work in progress, setting up for web spotlight. Yep. I'm going to push that to origin main. And then I'm going to Netlify init. And we're going to create and configure a new site and put it on mine here. And we'll say content web editing. I don't know. We'll call it. That's a whatever. It's fine. Then our build is going to be next build. All right. So it did all the auto detection that we want. Yes. Do we need a? No, we don't need that. Okay. So what we've just done is we have deployed this site, and it's going to be building now. So if I go to Netlify open, it's going to pop open the Netlify dashboard for us, and we'll see the site building. And once this finishes, which should only take a moment, actually, I might need to, I'm going to import these. I'm going to import the environment variables so that they're in Netlify. And so this is a CLI command. We can just run that, and you can see here that it pulled them all in. And now if I do a Netlify env list, it'll show me all of my environment variables. And they're masked by default, but if I want to show them, I can spit them out like that. But now that we have those, I think this is going to fail because we don't have, it failed because we were missing environment variables. So let me go back and let's deploy again now that we've added the environment variables. And that should build and get us online, at which point we will have previewable URLs. So we'll just do a little, give it a little one of these.
Yeah, I hope the build is gonna go through because I haven't tried it myself yet.
I guess, well, if this doesn't work, we can explore a little bit and see what is going wrong. But I think no Next.js cache, that's fine. It didn't like something.
Oh.
Boolean is not assignable to type string. Okay, so we got to make it.
Yeah, you need to do a
string true. Fine. We can solve that problem. All right, now you're happy. I guess I could have checked that. I assumed it just didn't like that name. Okay, so we'll push that, and then that'll kick off a new build. Here it goes. And now I think we have a cache. This should hopefully go faster. Well, no, it won't cache if there's a failed build because we don't want to cache anything that didn't work. So this will take another minute or so, and then we'll be off to the races here. Assuming. Thank you for the kind words, Earholes McGee. I didn't think that name was going to get me. That's a great name. I appreciate y'all. Chat, how y'all doing today? How is everybody? Thank you all. I saw Alex and Co. You rated a little while ago. Really appreciate that. Welcome if you're still hanging out. It's a great Thursday. It's a little bit sunny in Portland, which is, new for this time of year. And don't you do that crap. It failed.
Oh, it failed again.
Can be escaped. It doesn't like image. That's whatever. We don't care. External synchronous scripts are forbidden. Is it just gonna?
Yeah, I was afraid of that.
Yell at us like that. Let's just mark them as. We can just mark them as. Where's my doc? Here, my document. Here, I have a solution. We'll just go here, and here, and we'll mark them all as async. And what else didn't it like?
Yeah.
It didn't like that. Do not use. Is it going to fail on this though?
No, I think do not use should be only warnings.
It's throwing as errors though, which is not great. So let's find all of those. Let's look for all of our links here. We've got not that one. Here?
In the footer, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't like these. How about
Just remove them. Footer is not essential here.
That's a good point. Why don't we just do that? I'm just gonna eliminate these altogether for now.
Yeah.
All right. What else do we got? We got all those ones here. That's fine. Menu. These are also grumpy.
Yeah,
so
the same thing.
This one maybe we want to fix. Is it link? How does this work? It's like link.
Yeah, I think it's linked to
href,
maybe.
and then I think you got to drop one of these in there so it can attach to it. Is that right? Can't remember. I've never been a huge fan of this because it feels very like chaotic to me.
Right.
But we can make it work. And then we'll go with our closing link, and I think that solves those problems. What else is in here? What else do we need? We've got all of these. The images we can ignore, I think, but we probably... Is it... you're going to fail me on this, aren't you? Okay. Get the link, and then we'll put that link out here. And then we'll move this href up here. And then you're still unhappy? Well, the images I care less about. This, I just want it to not...
Yeah, I think it's a couple of times here.
Yeah. Let me just go and get this one. Fine. And then one more. And then if there's others, I'm just going to delete them.
Right.
Okay. All right. What else we got in here? Any others? Newsletter's fine. That one is fine. That one's fine. These are all links. Those are all links. Okay, that should then fix it. Let's use links. And yeah, this link, the error that we're getting is a linting error from Next, which feels like it. Oh shit! It's gonna break this one too. Where is this? See, you made me swear. Next, you made me swear. No unescaped entities in which element though? Photos.tsx.
Or can we just get rid of the linting for this?
That's a
moment.
Great question. Are you the linter? Where's the error? Like, there's something that it's yelling at. Photos.tsx, newsletter.tsx. Is that where the problem is? Like, what you mad about? I don't see where the error is.
Oh, he doesn't like images, but
31, 104, 31. 31.
Yeah, it's actually in the notice. I'm not.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god. All right. So that was a very helpful linting rabbit hole. I'm very glad that was turned on. Let's git commit am fix please the linter, and then we'll push that. And this time, I think we'll actually get everything to work, because that was, I believe, the last problem. Oh crap, we might get one more.
Oh, he doesn't like rel.
Oh, because it wants me to put all this stuff over here. Man, just leave me alone. Leave me alone, Next. Let me do my thing. Okay, so let's try this. Commit am fix one more try, please, linter. We're just trying to code. All right, so One more failure, but this time it's just the one error. Type error. Yep. Okay, good. Fine. This is the one. So everyone just you put this out of your mind. It'll just erase the last 5 minutes. This is working on the first try. You believe me. Okay. This one's going to work. And then we're going to have about 7 minutes to get the web preview in place. Did I completely hose us with the linter rabbit hole?
A bit, but we'll see what we can do.
We'll go as fast as we can.
Well, fingers crossed that the build is going to go through now.
Yes, this one's going to work.
Okay.
Come on, do your thing. Do your thing. Failing on type checking. Jeez. None of those failed.
All the warnings.
No, this will work. This will work.
Yes. Come on.
Yeah, it looks good.
Come on.
Looks good.
Do it.
But I gotta say, I like these linting things. It really helps, keep you behave.
I like them as warnings. I really don't like it when a linter is like, you used an apostrophe, I'm going to fail your build.
And it breaks your build. And it's fine if the build takes a few seconds, but if it's a 5-minute build.
Yeah, exactly, right. If this was a big site with like lots of stuff, because this is still taking a couple minutes, and we burned a solid 5 minutes, 10 minutes trying to get this sorted, which it just takes you out of the flow of building. And when it's something like don't use links, don't just don't do that. It wastes my time. Now I'm frustrated. Now I wish that we hadn't used Next, like that. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those, like it would have been much easier to just warn me and I would have fixed it eventually. But now we have a public URL. So
perfect. So
and
just copy that and we'll set it up as VS homepage here. Yeah.
Okay. Do I need to do anything
else? When you
else?
save that, now you can go into Web Spotlight.
Web Spotlight.
Yeah. And here, what you see here is that we only have the homepage, right? We don't have any other pages right now. But if you added some pages, like if you click those 3 dots on the left, you can actually create other pages here, create new ones or link. So this actually adds a content tree, like the website content tree right in the CMS. If your website, if you're building a website from your project, So this is completely unrelated to the content repository. This is, you can pretty much build whatever you want here. And on the right, obviously, is your site rendered, and it automatically goes into the edit mode, right? So you can directly go in and change some content. Now, if you just click on something there,
it's really nice.
It should also give you the possibility of on-site editing. So it brings the editor over your website. And of course, do we have a draft on this, or can you change this?
I think we do, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Right.
Okay. Changes are ready.
Yeah, but maybe because we were using get static props, we need to do a rebuild in this case, because we're not using the preview mode of Next.js.
So it's not like you just need to go back to the. Oops.
Yeah, like what we can do is we can change on the implementation. We can change it to get server side props so that it gets converted into a serverless function. But otherwise, you would need to run it as a preview through the preview API route, in Next.js. Because right now it's pre-built. Yeah.
Right, that makes sense. So to fix this, for like our public build, we could just change this to get server side props, right?
Yeah, not sure if the signature is the same, but that should help.
Yeah,
probably need to do that one as well.
Get server side props results, is that right? No.
Yeah.
Get server side props.
Get server side props. Yeah.
Can't find name. Get server side props because
you may need to import it as well. Yeah. Oh no.
There we go. Now it's happy, and it likes. I think this all seems right. All right, let's try that one more time.
Okay.
And actually, maybe we can just run a quick Netlify dev here to check it locally before we try to export it.
So I think that this is what the preview API
works.
route does anyway. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I don't remember enough about the Next preview API to like turn it on. Because is it like a cookie that has to be set, or what's the...
Yeah, it's just one API route. I actually have it quite handy, the code, but let's see if it works like this. I think that we can leave it as it is. The setup is quite easy, but...
Is that linked somewhere that we can send? Because we're at like the 3-minute mark here, so I have a suspicion that switch.
Yeah, like I have the Let me send the API route in the chat. It's from my personal site, so if you wanna copy it over.
Yeah, let me.
Like this one is based on content, right? So the only thing you need to do is just translate the code name that you have in the preview URL into an actual URL on the website. But otherwise, it's quite straightforward.
Got it. So yeah, in this case, we would set it up to put Next into preview mode. What I have chosen to do is for the development site, use get server side props. Both work. This one's probably like a little more setup and a little less code divergence. If you want to use get static props, which is probably the right idea when you get to actually deploying the site. Let's see. So here's this. That is almost done. And with it, post-processing, it's live. Okay. So then I'm going to go back to Web Spotlight. And now it's doing the thing. So let's edit that one more time. And I'm going to change it back to JSON. Right? And then we've saved that, waiting for changes to be applied. They've been applied. And so we're now live editing. That is slick. Yeah. That's really nice.
And there's one more thing I wanted to show you, Jason. If you go back to the implementation, back to the hero component, and where we have the data content component ID, just add a few more attributes here. Below that, let's keep it there. And let's add an attribute data content add button without any value. And then below, add a data content add button render position. And do a bottom.
Okay.
And data content add button insert position. And make that after.
Oops. Like that?
Yes. Now, hopefully this is going to be all we need to do here. So yeah, save it and maybe quickly build that. So what this does
will it work locally in preview mode, or is it
no, this actually needs to be deployed because it needs Web Spotlight. What this does is it not only shows the components below each other, but it also adds a little plus icons there that the editor directly sees and can click on them, and then Kontent will pick that up and will enable the editor to add new components right from the website UI. So you don't have to meddle with any rich text editors, nothing. You just directly work with the site and add components this way.
Great. Okay, so this is going to take probably another couple seconds here. We're working from a cache, so it's much faster. And this is going to hopefully just work on the first try. While we're waiting for that, I'm going to send folks to a couple places here. First, I'm going to send everyone to content.ai so that you can go check out Kontent by Kentico for yourself. I'm also going to direct you to Ondrej's Twitter. So head over to Ondrebus. And I'm going to do another shout out to our live captioning. We've had Amanda here from White Coat Captioning all day. Thank you, Amanda, for being here. And that is made possible by our sponsors, Netlify, NX, and Backlight, all kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people, which I very much appreciate. make sure you go and check out the schedule while you are looking for things. And there's so much good stuff. I'm not going to go into it because we're short on time, but lots and lots of good things happening. Okay, so this is now live. I'm going to go back. I'm going to reload the web spotlight.
So fingers crossed. A bit down. It should be
A bit down.
Below. Yeah, there it is. The plus button.
Oh, interesting.
But it's
Okay.
we may have configured something wrongly because it shows that some attributes are missing.
Okay.
So there's probably something wrong. But otherwise, what this does is it opens a little dialog that lets you create a new component or a new linked item, exactly the same as in the rich text editor. But it's nice when you're adding stuff and you're directly looking at it as you're building the website. It kind of brings the visual editing experience that editors are used to from WYSIWYG.
So basically, if we take this and we implement this and go through and get everything instrumented properly, what I get is an experience I can send to my content team where they see the website as it looks, but they get this ability to edit each section of the website in place and experiment with, this is what it looks like, this is how it works. And then when they're ready, that preview is also available on the built branch, the deployment, the develop branch or whatever, where they can share it to somebody for feedback. So we've kind of created, using this workflow, a really nice content editor experience. As a developer, we get to work in whatever we want. We got to use Next today. We could switch this over to something like Remix, Astro, 11D, whatever, because it's all done through data attributes, which is really nice. And then we can also, do a branch build of like production uses the production key, development uses the development key in preview mode so that we can always be pulling the latest details. This is powerful stuff. We've got a lot of options here. Unfortunately, we are out of time. So I'm going to give you any parting words for everybody as we wrap this up.
Yeah, I just, the last thing I wanted to mention is that if you're not working with Next.js or a framework that has server-side rendering capabilities, there's also a way that your website, when the preview is ready, you can send the webhook back to Kontent that will refresh when it's ready. Yeah, so it's prepared also for folks that like Gatsby or other popular frameworks out there. Otherwise, no. If there's anything that I can help you with, then ping me on Twitter. I hope that your editors are going to be happy eternally, like we are developers.
Excellent. All right, everybody, we're going to go find somebody to raid. Ondrej, thank you so much for taking some time with us today. Thank you all very much. We will see you next time.
Thanks. See you, Jason.